So at this point, everybody knows about the comedy movie The Interview, which is being pulled from theaters because of baseless hacker threats online. Well, I want to give you some backstory here so you know about a certain right-wing billionaire who's involved in the situation and who some can argue is actually most responsible for the chain of events that led to this being pulled from the theaters. So Regal Cinemas is the biggest and most geographically diverse theater company in the country. It operates over 7,000 screens all over America. Goddamn, that's a lot. And the Daily Beast reports, quote, industry sources with knowledge of the situation say that Regal and AMC theaters were the first dominoes to fall in the top 5 theater circuits, essentially sealing the fate of The Interview, that it wouldn't be released, or at least not released right now. So they described losing Regal as, quote, the great loss. So what they're setting up for you is this idea that if you can pin it on any one theater in particular, any one company in particular, it's Regal because they're the biggest, they're the most powerful, and they were the first to go. So the owner of Regal, who calls the shots, is a guy named Philip Anschutz. He's, quote, a secretive, deeply conservative billionaire and devout Christian who is, according to the New Yorker, the man who owns L.A. He, quote, presides over a sprawling media and sports empire that spans from the Lakers to the Chronicles of Narnia. He has donated generously to conservative and anti-gay candidates and causes, including Rick Santorum, both Bush presidents, John McCain, and Mitt Romney. Okay, stop and think here. It's one thing to give to John McCain, which is pretty fucking bad, but you donated to Rick Santorum. Christian Taliban crazy person Rick Santorum. So this guy is as Republican as they come. He is a Republican. And he's, of course, a big hawk as well, an American power and strength. I mean, these are his core ideas and so-called principles. They continue, quote, last year, Regal Entertainment Group slashed some workers' hours down to 30 per week, blaming Obamacare, and Media Matters labeled Anschutz the other right-wing media mogul you should worry about in 2009. The other one, of course, being Rupert Murdoch. They say in 2002, Fortune magazine even dubbed Anschutz America's greediest executive. So again, I don't know how much clearer we can be. He is a Republican? Oh, is he such a Republican? So here's where the story gets awesome. He owns a slew of conservative news outlets, and I use that term very loosely, including the Washington Examiner and the Weekly Standard. The Weekly Standard is known as the beacon of conservatism. Now, what did the Weekly Standard say the day after The Interview was dropped from theaters? Quote, the surrender to North Korea is a historical moment. The capitulation to North Korea could be, unless we reverse course in a fundamental way, a signpost in a collapse of civilizational courage. So they're very against it, to say the least. So now let's reflect, and let's piece together everything we went through. What do we have here? We have a tough-talking, hard-right, no-nonsense, hawk tough guy who capitulates to North Korea in the weakest way imaginable and then lies about it with propaganda through his papers. Well, if that doesn't sum up the far right in a nutshell, I don't know what does. Look, here's my thing, man. If you're going to be weak, which I think that's what this move is, okay, to pull it from the theaters and not even release it because some dunce-head dictator is threatening you, and we'll get to the cyber attacks a little later on in the show, and I'll give you more details about that. But if you're going to be weak and buckle in this situation to a clown dictatorship over threats that the federal officials are saying there's no credibility to the threats. There's no evidence to back it up. But you're going to capitulate anyway, then don't also pretend that you're a tough guy and, I'm Mr. Republican and Obama's weak and Obama went on an apology tour because he's a weak American. Anyway, can I please now capitulate to the North Koreans? I would really appreciate that. Look, there's some people saying, and it's certainly true when people say, well, this isn't really a First Amendment issue, so calm down. Because the First Amendment, of course, applies to the government. It means that the government cannot censor you. It has nothing to do with private corporations. So if a private corporation chooses to pull a movie for whatever fucking reason they want, or they choose to fire somebody who works for them for whatever fucking reason they want, for, whatever the person says, that's fine under the law. But you cannot deny the reality that the principle behind it is the same. So you're right. Technically, it's not illegal and it's not unconstitutional for them to, pull a movie because they're scared of some threats, right? Of course they could do that. But the principle behind it is weak. And the principle behind it does fly in the face of the idea of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, to stand up for what you believe in and to stand up for creativity and satire.